This is
IR Prime, and welcome to part 3 of the Cartoon Network Retrospective and Ranking. The End of the World.
Let's see. High school, lifelong friends, internet critics, got a job, quit a job, learned Photoshop, got a new job, art school, but that's mostly 2020, and oh boy, 2020. But most importantly, Cartoon Network shows. This era specifically being the most divided in terms of quality, since it was the revival of the channel after the live-action show controversy. Some of these shows I've never seen before, and others I watched as they were coming out, and this is gonna be the most experimental of all these rankings. Same rules as before, no live-action shows, no anthologies, and subscribe for more videos like this.
There's nothing funny! There's nothing funny!
But before we continue, I'm gonna do the thing I did at the end of the 2000 video and go over the co-produced shows very quick. Heroes 108, very stylized and not too bad. Love that skeleton rabbit. A. Lazy Town. It's a show based on an Icelandic property and is by far the most popular incarnation of Lazy Town, but not the best one. These puppets don't give me nightmares because they are very bland. What the fuck? But at least Glendy Gladber is still the best. B. The Hoppos Family, a preschool show about hippos doing stuff and speak Simlish. Ask your kids if it's funny and or good. C. For See a Psychiatrist. It's funny because both the words don't start with a C. Grizzly and the Lemmings, same thing as the last one, but with a bear and lemmings. See again. The heroic quest of valiant Prince Ivandoe. It has the same look and feel as Gumball since it was created by an animator from that show and even has similar humor. S-Ray. Power Players. From the creators of Ben 10 and Generax, Man of Action comes with the $1 million question. What if Toy Story, but Andy turned into a toy? Hello, B. Garage Band. Hey, wait a minute. This isn't Scott Pilgrim. A. Super Nukes, made by Scott How Do You Do Fellows Kids. Here comes a show about kids fighting aliens and they suck at it. Hence the name Super Noobs. It's alright. B. Mega Man, Fully Charged. I love the Blue Bomber. His games are pretty tight and the RT comics were good. This show is fine. Some of the redesigns are good and some are Cutman's ugly bowl cut. The silly tone was kind of blah and the Boom Studio comic sequel was dark and edgy. B. Bakugan Battle Planet. I barely watched the first Bakugan show. Why the fuck would I watch this? C. Total Dramarama. It's the baby one. It has a fart sniffing scene. D. Role number 21, also known as Krish, an Indian show about the incarnation of the Hindu deity Lord Krishna. It's not in English, I don't speak Hindi, so I can't comment on it, and I don't know anything about Hinduism. B. Exchange Student Zero.
Oh, happy peach flower. Now that is one real woman.
Yeah, anime was a mistake. D. Lamput. Oh my god, he is so cute. A.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oswaldo. It's a penguin in a sweater. C. Ninjin. Brazilian anthro ninja shows with a bad English dub.
Little kids these days don't even know how to start a fight. Whee! Are we done? Oh, brother.
C. Weeboom. This voice is annoying.
Wee! You already said that the last 23 times. Remember, we are here to search for the boomy.
C. Alright, let's start with a real list with Adventure Time! Wait, Pink Panther? I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked the old Peter Sellers movies, with the exception of one. And the Stephen Martin one was funny because my brain is mush.
Hamburger. 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 Dimburger. Dimburger. The hamburger. 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 Hamburger.
You know what aspect of Pink Panther I don't care for in the slightest? The titular Pink Panther, as in the titular cat, not the titular diamond. The stupid cartoon cat is not the thing that interests me about this franchise. It's the bumbling detective, Inspector Jacques Clouseau, which, by the way, is not in the show. It's just a modern take on those old Pink Panther cartoons where the titular colored panther fucks with some white guy. Also, I hate this redesign. It's just as bad as the redesign of our Icelandic chocolate milk cat. I used to watch the old PP cartoons when I was young. The only one I remember was the painting one, you know, the one where he paints. This show also has other characters that I've never seen. If there are any big Pink Panther heads in the comments, please tell me if they are important legacy characters made by Deepade Freleng Enterprises. God damn it, I wanted to start off this retrospective with a show that revived Cartoon Network, but I just had to start it off with this Pink Panther show. I don't care about this show. See? Now, okay, it's time for adventure time. So this is... Oh, I bit my tongue. So this is the segment where I decided to write last. Why is that, you ask? Well, because Adventure Time is not just my favorite show of all time, but my favorite thing of all time. Like Transformers and One Piece, it's more than just one thing to me. I first decided to watch the show from the weirdest of places, which was Doc Walker's Adventure Time vlogs that just hooked me. What the Also Avatar The Last Airbender, since I saw the movie first, and oh boy, was that bad. This was the first show to spawn from Flapjack, and made by Pendleton Ward, who originally pitched this show to Nickelodeon, and they said no, in favor of Fanboy and Chum Chum. Do with that information what you will, and arguably Adventure Time is the best show in my opinion, cause regular show may have its down to earth, but also its batshit insane vibe. Oh shit. Over the Garden Wall has its gothic atmosphere, and Gravity Falls, a show I discovered through Chatbase cause I'm kinda cursed, is everyone's favorite fan speculation extravaganza until the show ended, but Adventure Time is all of that, and even more. Now let's talk about all the aspects of the show I love, like...
It's adventure time!
The world our character live in is probably my favorite setting in any of these shows, even if it's a very colorful version of a post-apocalyptic Earth. The Land of Ooh is much of a character as any other in the show, and other shows for that matter. The Candy Kingdom is a wholesome, funny place, but has many dark secrets that I found very funny at first, and now I think it's very interesting for the main characters, but we'll talk about that later. And even though there are other kingdoms in the show, they don't get as much of a focus compared to Candy Kingdom. Fire Kingdom and Lemon Kingdom gets some, and Ice Kingdom is kingdom in name only, so it's unique in that it gets more focus. Wizard City was always a weird aspect of Adventure Time, and most of the time it's the butt of a joke, but it comes around and does something insane. The one place that is the most important one is the treehouse that gets the most focus, obviously, because that's where the heroes live, and has quite the scene in the finale. But Ooh is not the only place we get to see. There's the Nightosphere, Land of the Dead, Prismo's Room, Farm World, Mars, fucking slumpy space. My favorite one of worlds is the Pillow World, cause that was a mindfuck. From space, Earth, and the world beyond life. These worlds give me such a comic book vibe, and I can't think of any other show that can top that. Sure, K&D has its batshit world, and other shows do have more simplistic settings that sometimes can be argued they do it just as good, but some of them doesn't have as much depth and personality as Adventure Time. But enough about places. Let's talk about...
It's adventure time!
My favorite thing about any movie, TV show, book, comic, stage play, pachinko machine will always be characters, because your story can have the most bold idea out there, have the strongest hook, or just the genre that's very popular with a twist. If the characters make me want to scream into the abyss, then fuck that noise, into the garbage it goes. Adventure Time may be the counterpoint, cause the premise hooked me first, but I stayed for Finn, Jake, Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, Vampire Queen, and Ice King, who can be best described as the greatest hook this show has. These characters are more than just the surface level. Shows before Adventure Time, they had cast members that were fully developed, and shows after Adventure Time followed its example, but nothing goes as hard as Adventure Time. Finn, who is the lawful good hero we love, but then starts slowly to become more aware of what is right and wrong. His feelings of love, justice, hate, despair gets challenged from time to time. Even with a theme song that calls him Finn the Human, we always ask the question, where are the other humans? Are they dead? Is he the last one? Wait, is that character human? Or that one? This growth and change does not just describe Finn. Marceline, the fan favorite, who has gone through the ringer, her own miniseries where she hunts vampires named after tarot cards, her relationship with Princess Bubblegum that goes from on the nose to so obvious that it's right there, and even if some, like Jake, doesn't change, he is still one of the deepest characters the show has to offer in terms of his relationship with his parents, his parasite dad, his brothers, his girlfriend Lady Rainicorn, who I just realized gets to do so little in the show, it's kinda weird. His children, who all get their own episodes, 2 of them get more than others and are voiced by the Bob's Burger kids. And his own interests and views on life makes Jake one of the best characters in the show. Princess Bubblegum, the most controversial topic of the show, is one of my favorite characters of all time. Probably for the reason you might think. And not that, yeah, see, I'm also deep with Elaine. Her looks and how she talks often contrast with how she feels and does things. Her morality is one of the most fascinating of them all, but most of the time it's the most criticized aspect of her. She mostly does good things for the sake of her people and the greater good, but other times her ends does not justify the means and slowly does take a step back and think of another way. My favorite scene is her unplugging all of the cameras around you, because that scene is just brilliant. Note, I looked up Adventure Time alignment chart for fun, and most of them put PB in lawful good, and yeah, I disagree. But then there's BMO. BMO's not deep, BMO's not complex, BMO is BMO. And BMO's whole thing is just to be the most wholesome thing in the show, and BMO always makes me smile. And I could go on forever about every character, like LSP and her being an annoying character actually saves the world. The Lich, a nightmare villain topping the likes of him and Aku for being an unstoppable force of power until he becomes a baby. Ice King, the most tragic character in the show in many ways. Peppermint Butler, the most darkest character in the show, that's mostly for the lulz. Death, and out of 3 depictions of death throughout CN history, he's my second favorite. Lemongrab. Yeah, and 100 of tertiary characters that make an impact on the show in so many ways. But I'm gonna slide into...
Who knows how it will end? It's Adventure Time.
Like most shows, the season 1 is pretty weak and not sure where it wanted to go, but season 2 to 10 are pure gold. We got one-off stories like James Baxter, the weird horse thing, which whole joke is that he's animated by James Baxter. The Grey Bulls that got weirder and weirder, that in Grey Bulls 1000 plus, that gave us a glimpse of the future. And Fiona Cake's whole concept is just genius. By the way, it's getting a spin-off show and it's not out yet, but I'm writing this. I gotta say though, reading synopsis for Fiona Cake gets me kinda excited.
Not to mention the guest animated episodes like Fujen that was animated by Masaki Yuasa. Even the couple behind Batman and Spider-Man, Alex and Lindsay, animated 2 episodes for Adventure Time, Beyond the Grotto and Catch Up, which are quite the trip. Whoa! Also, I want to mention that Batman and Spider-Man is my only favorite show from Monomedia, and the goddamn Minecraft episode.
But then there are overarching stories like the disturbing lore of Lemongrab, Orca-Lork, PB's extended family, and the most important, the Lich Saga. He may be used sparingly, but that just proves how effective he is. I could make a video just about the list because it's that good. Oh, and then there is the miniseries that tell one continuous stories. Stakes, Islands, Elements are one of my favorite arcs in Adventure Time for the comedy its lore and the overlasting impact. And even if the finale had gold, a cosmic horror that came out of nowhere, it was still good and had some amazing moments. Even then it wasn't enough for me, because then came the HBO Max specials that slapped hard and felt more like a finale for individual characters. Heck, I even read the comics, something I never got into for other shows because I love Adventure Time so much. The idea of endless possibilities and that the stories span around years and years, beyond life and death. And everybody is the protagonist of their own world. All in all, Adventure Time is not just my favorite show and comic, but it's just my favorite experience that I shared with my friends. Brings me to tears. And this show is an obvious S rank.
The fun will never end, it's Adventure Time.
With all the crossovers Scoop has had in this retrospective, it's insane that I haven't talked about an actual Scooby-Doo show. I like the show, cause never have I ever been so compelled about a goddamn Scooby-Doo of all things. I've seen more Scooby-Doo compared to things like Flintstones and other Hanna-Barbera shows. Shows and movies like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, live-action movies, and Scoob. The failed pilot movie for the Hanna-Barbera version of the MCU were also experimental in their own right, but Mystery Incorporated is the most famous one of them all, taking a more mature and darker turn compared to its various versions throughout the years. Keep in mind, I wrote this before Velma aired, and yeah, it may also be experimental, but I'm not watching the show because Mindy Kaling was not the actor I remember from The Office because everything revolving around her was furiously boring, and BJ Novak was even worse. Sorry about that, I used to watch The Office. Heck, if you ask the biggest SD fans, which sounds like a sex disease, what the best shows are, this, also 13 Ghosts, is the best one. And they are right, Derek J. Wyatt was the art director, and that is always a plus for me. I'm also a fan of this insane take on the Scooby franchise compared to what came before and after, because almost anything else is not that lore heavy, and season 2 finale, which I won't spoil, it's up there with the most batshit insane endings Cartoon Network shows have brewed. We have an overarching mystery throughout the entire show, themes of reincarnation, mythology, destiny, and Velma finally coming out. Season 1 is good, but season 2 is where everything goes from to 11 in terms of what is happening. There are 2 crossover episodes with other Scooby-Doo clones who will only be remembered for being clones. I can't believe that Blue Falcon is a recurring character in this retrospective that I forgot to mention. Out of all the Scooby-Doo shows I've seen, this might be the best I've seen, so it gets an A. Scoopy Snack.
From the creative team of Man of Action, who were responsible for Ben 10, comes Generator X. The show loosely inspired, not based on to be specific, by Avalon, the subsidiary of Image Comics' Machina Rex that came and went as fast as I could process the show's existence. First time I saw this show was at a pizzeria. I don't remember which one. I think it's in Reykjavik on the highway close to NA. It doesn't matter. Oh yeah, I barely heard of this show when it aired and when it ended. Even the Ben 10 crossover was not good enough to hype up the show, probably because it was Ultimate Alien, which was trash. Although I liked the second crossover a little more that had nothing to do with the original Gen Rex show. And I kinda accept that people are gonna hate me for liking these stupid chippy remake shows cause I don't take this shit seriously. Anyway, Renerator Gex is very mid-show to be honest. Most of the characters are not that interesting to me and the action is fine, but I don't find it great because of the former criticism. Season 3's more drastic storytelling is kinda good. Characters I didn't care about get to be more interesting. Questions to many mysteries get answered, and the ending was good. Not great or amazing, just good. There's not much to say, so yeah, it's mid, so that's a B tier. Now let's talk about something terrible. Mad? More like, this show drove me mad.
Bah! Dunch!
I used to read, and by read I mean look at because I couldn't read English, few of the Mad magazines and they were fun. When I heard about this show I thought I was gonna have some fun as well.
and then I watched it and hated every single second. Mad is a sketch show based around the comic strips from the magazine itself and making fun of various movies, TV shows, and celebrities a la the likes of Robot Chicken, only with various art and animation styles. That is not just Seth Green playing with his action figures and made more PG. I mean, I thought Robot Chicken was funny even though I haven't watched it in a while, and I'm not saying a show based around Mad Magazine can't work. They already made one called Mad TV, and it's much funnier compared to this, although the only thing I remember is Will Sasso doing a flanderized Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. It's much funnier than this show. First I wanted to give this show a chance, but they just throw an unfunny joke after the other with its annoying fast pace that you start to lose your mind. I hope I don't lose my mind at the end of this retrospective. I say drop it like it's hot. That was terrible. D. Once upon a time, James Garland Quintel made an animated short about two guys doing drugs at their work at a convenience store, where they turned into Blue Jay and a Gumball machine. And CN decided to give him his own show. The second one was that spawned from Flapjack. The former cartoon 2 in the AM/PM gives this man a similar background to Ed, Edd n Eddy and Squirrel Boy. And if you ask me, I believe this show follows a similar success as the Eds. Regular show is everything but regular in its premise of anthro characters working in a public park where shit gets weird real fast, with sentient mixtapes, flying head of Donkey Kong record holder, and sometimes just real life shit like relationship issues, problematic working environment, and death. The concept, not the actual character. He's just kinda there. I didn't know what to think when I started watching this show and even where it was going. Some episodes are just the escalation of the norm in this world, and other times it becomes very emotionally invested with heartbreaks and tragedies. Mordecai and Rickaby start off as annoying frat boys that are always the cause and later the solution of the problem, but get insanely deeper as the show goes on. The supporting cast are also very great, with Pops, who's just adorable, Benson, who I relate to on an emotional level that it scares me, Skips, played by Mark Hamill, who can't do no wrong, and Muscleman, who surprisingly gets the most depth of the entire cast, despite his very weird impression. Also, high five goes to Exist. I guess he doesn't contribute to anything. The most craziest thing I can remember from this show is the final season that happens in space, which in most shows it sounds like you have run out of ideas. But since it's the last season, that means it's peaked. Also, there is this vibe that the show was originally made by an older audience, which you can see in J.G. Quintel's other show, Close Enough, which I highly recommend. I guess you can say it's a close enough comparison. And the finale that, Jesus Christ, do I need to make a top 5 what the fuck Cartoon Network finales? Because that's the only way I can describe it. You know what? This show's great. It gets an S. And you know who else gets an S rank? My mom! Hi Mom, thanks for watching my stupid videos. The fourth Gendy show. Still haven't seen Primal, and Unicorn Warriors Eternal hasn't come out yet.
Unicorn Warriors Eternal.
The other giant robot show that got neutered by CN because they forgot to advertise it. Now they own it, but Gendy was too busy making money from the Hotel Transylvania movies, which I've only seen 2 of, second and fourth for some reason. Anyway, Sym-Bionic Titan is a great show with Gendy being at his best with his visual storytelling, people that talk and move in ways only Gendy can make work, and animation that just flows in the most beautiful ways. Are you even listening to me right now? Out of all the 3 Gendy shows, I'd say this one unfortunately falls in 3rd place. Probably because, as it is, there's not much to it compared to its predecessors, like with the surrealism of Dexter and the epic scale of Samurai Jack. The most noteworthy parts are its characters and their growth. Famous example being the snobby cheerleader Kimmy who falls for Octus, the AI who disguises himself as a thick boy, and it's mostly remembered for the twerk scene because of course it is. Gimli's development reminds me of Pacifica's Pacifica's development in Gravity Falls that got more explored in the comics rather than its own show. I don't know, I just picked up that comparison or just made it up, or I've seen too much Pacifica porn. This show gets an A. Created by Michael Buckley, known for writing book series like Sister Grimm, Nerds, and Undertow, while the show was directed by Christy Caracas, who has worked on Adult Swim shows Super Jail and Ballmasters 9009. It's important to know about Carcass's previous and later works because Robotomy is his attempt to make more family-friendly show compared to those shows. And I've seen both shows and they're fine. I could do without them. Super Jail was a little funny but got tired after season 1. And Ballmasters 9009 has some moments and anime references that range from cool to that's kinda cringe. But what about Robotomy? I think the robots are not that fun, the animation is fine, but the art style is kinda bland and ugly with a disgusting yellow and green color scheme. And the show has a very annoying fast pace for 11-minute episodes, but okay. There are one or two jokes that are funny, and it could be argued that the jokes could be funnier if this was more of an adult-oriented show, but if you think that, you have not watched the Cartoon Network show. But my favorite parts of the show are the guest actors playing weird one-offs.
We're declaring war on toddlers!
Oh yeah, and it's only 10 episodes long. Or if you count 20 minutes as a full episode, that makes it 5 episodes, making it one of the shortest CN shows there is. Well, second shortest, but we'll get to that one later. Overall, I'll give this show a C. It's the DC show that dared to challenge the likes of Justice League and Teen Titans by being one of those love letters to the comics with its rich cast of DC mainstays, one-offs, or new kids on the block made for the show that were popular enough to be integrated into the comics, and long overarching stories. And with the show over, I think, unless it's gonna come back like how Season 2 was supposedly the finale, only for Season 3 to come out on its DC streaming service and was made more adult, did it succeed? I'm very mixed about this show. There are too many heroes and villains in the show to begin with, and unlike Justice League, Teen Titans, and Batman Brave and the Bold, where they had tons of cast members but knew how to balance main cast, supporting cast, and tertiary characters, Young Justice plays it off like every minor detail is important, like I was supposed to remember. And that does sound hypocritical of me to say, since I'm a big fan of One Piece and Adventure Time that does the same thing, but this show ran for much shorter time and condenses so much into so little time. Oh, but it's a DC show, so you should be familiar with it. Counter argument. If you don't have new fans in mind, that's gonna be very alienating. And even if I was a fan, I feel like the show focuses more rather on fan service, and its third and fourth season focus more on reminding you how mature and serious they have become with blood and their subject matter as opposed to tell a comprehensive story. Sometimes I like the continuity in this show and some developments for some like Satana, Superboy, Miss Martian, Will Harper, who is the clone of Roy Harper, spoiler for season 1, and Beast Boy, whose entire trauma is recapped in Teen Titans Go art style and is very fucked up and very funny.
We all have to go on a mission and die.
No!
But most of that happens in season 3 and 4. I didn't care that much for the first 2 seasons, and the last 2 seasons were kinda interesting because it felt like a totally different show. And then it ended with a cliffhanger that will probably never be resolved. Maybe it will come back, but at the moment, it's a B for Bumblebee shrinking so she can save her newborn baby by going inside the baby's lung. This show sucks! Problem Solverz is about a trio of neon-colored nightmares who solve problems in this neon-colored world, which I decided not to show video clips because I don't want to cause people seizures, so enjoy these still images. The show was made by Ben Jones, whose art is known for its saturated neon colors that look decent for what it is. Seeing the art in motion is a totally different story altogether. I may not suffer from epilepsy and it didn't bother me that much, but that is far from the worst aspect for me personally. What I personally don't like is the bland whatever these guys are, and the very try-hard random tone. It all comes off of this new era of CN not knowing what they want to do, so they just throw everything at the wall to see if anything will work in the end. Like, the premise is not good enough to keep me interested, and they don't even take the show to other places to expand on its initial concept. Well, with all the criticism out the way, is there anything I like about the show? Like Tuckstock? He somehow makes the show tolerable and it's just better than the trio. The show gets a D. Oh man, this is my shit. Made by Ben Boquillet. Comes the Gumball show about a blue cat and his goldfish brother landing in some wacky, crazy shenanigans that go into very weird places. This is the most beautiful show in terms of art style and aesthetics. 2D, 3D, claymation, stop motion, and one-time real life in this show of talking animals, food, cloud, and whatever those things are. Humans? I will admit that the early seasons are kinda meh, but at some point the show becomes something unhinged, crazy, and just outright metatextual. It's so hard to describe this show because everything happens. One character reveals something about themselves that changes the status quo forever. There's an episode where they just have an anime battle. One is where we just riff on that Chinese knockoff Miracle Star where they just murder them, and the goddamn ending that began with a former background characters disappearing from reality for being irrelevant, only for one of them, his name is Rob, turns into the main antagonist, and learning about that his existence is fictional and everything is coming to an end, and with the last scene of the show shows him falling into the wide void, and now I sit and wait every second until it comes back, and the only thing that has come out of a bunch of clip shows disguised as spin-offs, and oh my god, what was that banana drawing? Yeah, this is a fucked up show, and I love every second of it. It's just a furry version of The Simpsons if every episode is 22 short films about Springfield. Fun fact, I once went to a voice acting course and voiced a Gumball episode where I played the dad. I forgot how I sounded, so I was probably horrible. Tell me in the comments if I am a good voice actor or not. Also, like, comment, subscribe. Also, this show gets an S.
Hey guys, I'm home from Sweden. My friend Vivi is gonna make a video about it very soon. Subscribe to them. Anyway, I found the DVD where I did the voiceover for Gumball. Let's put it in the DVD case. Oh wait, I don't have a DVD case, so let's just put it in my PlayStation 2. God, remember those? Alright, here it goes. I hope this is the right... I don't think this is the right one. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. Fuck. Fuck. Ah, fuck. This is not the one. This is me doing a cover of America's Unicorn. Don't listen to it. Oh god, no. No. Okay, take 2. False alarm. I forgot that the PlayStation 2 is the worst DVD player of all time, so I'm gonna try the PS4 now. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's see how terrible I was. Okay, I'm terrible.
It's the third experimental Looney Tunes show called The Looney Tunes Show. But what does a basic titled show like this do compared to babies, pop culture in space, superheroes, younger generation trying to live up to the original's expectations, and now after 28 years they're finally getting the limelight again? Seinfeld, anyone? Oh god, what is that?
I'm thinking about doing a bit about how being transgender is actually a mental illness.
Yeah, it's just the Looney Tunes living in the cul-de-sac and just landing in some wacky sitcom hijinks and such. and it's genius. For the first time, we get a glimpse into the Looney Tunes not just as goofy chaos bringers, but as three-dimensional characters and very grounded humor that is beyond hilarious. And this is by far the most perfect depiction of Lola Bunny compared to Bland Sexy from Space Jam, Valkyrie Bitch in Space Jam 2, or Diaper. The history of female counterparts for Buzz is weird, and Lola's definitely the third time's the charm scenario here. Heck, Tiny Toons beat the originals with their first try, and yes, I'll use any excuse to talk about Tiny Toons. Fun fact, Looney Tunes The Laugh Riot was a scrapped show that shares some very similar aesthetics. And there was the non-canon movie Rabbit's Run that was okay. Kristen Wiig doesn't voice Lola in that one, so it may affect how you view that movie. There are also the last episode that was just, what if Bugs was Superman? Okay. Why? Because the Man of Steel was coming out, so you just used another Warner property to hype it up? Was it worth it? No. S rank.
Or something about how transgender people are ruining the fabric of society.
The ThunderCats was a show I never got into. In fact, most 80s shows that weren't Transformers never did it for me, except Bunnicula, that was good shit. Shows like G.I. Joe, TMNT, He-Man, and DuckTales. Sure, I like the G.I. Joe movie, and I'm more of a fan of the later variation of TMT. I already praised 22 He-Man show. Revelation was fun, and the DuckTales remake has no right to be this good. ThunderCats? I saw one episode of the old show in Greece, and a handful of episodes of this fan favorite show, and okay, at first I had the segment where I just said I didn't care that much about the clashing felines, but that sounds very boring, so I decided this segment should be a little more experimental. But now that I've watched it all with a more clear vision, I can give my honest opinion. This show reminds me a lot of He-Man 22, an obvious comparison with both being an 80s toy property, given more of a mature and a serious take on cat people fighting a mummy with swords sure does awake something within the 40s, and some of the designs are more appealing compared to the 80s or the other one. The animation is good, the characters are interesting. This version of Lionel reminds me of Optimus Prime from Animated. Also, the Unikitties are my favorite part of the show because they're so cute. The story can be investing, which cannot be understated when you ask a fan of the show. Only problem I have with the show are minor, like the love triangle subplot that went nowhere. Like, I get it, but that was kinda a waste of time. Then there is the finale that doesn't really feel like a finale and more of a sequel baking, but we left it in the oven for too long and now it's burned like the time I burnt my banana bread because I accidentally left it too long in the oven. And what the fuck am I talking about? So yeah, TCAS 2011 is a solid show that left many fans salty, and I can see why. This show gets an A.
I want to see your tits, my dear.
And we reached the fourth super deformed comedy-based show based on a popular franchise, and it's the most short-lived of them all. Unlike these three, this one doesn't count since it's very much based on the 80s show rather than the already existing 2011 show, which I'm convinced that the 2011 fans have not seen either of these two shows. And to be honest, I get it. You go from this to this. And just as I thought everyone learned the lessons, they go full arc, ruin forever. But as someone who watched all the episodes, I think it's okay. As a comedy, I laugh from time to time.
Ah! It's Mumra! He's in the base! Oh, dang it, Tigra! I'll get you next time!
That was Mumra?
As an action show, the fight scenes are fun and the animation can be very fluid, and anyone who says otherwise does not know what they're talking about.
I legitimately believe that the people who made the show do not know how to animate and know literally nothing about art.
You shut your unkempt beard mouth up. Well, remember when I said this was gonna be the experimental segment? Because this is the first ThunderCats show I watched from beginning to end. Then I watched the 2011 one from beginning to end. And now I'm starting to watch the 80s show. That's right! The show everyone hates is the show that got me into the ThunderCats franchise. Kinda similar how I got into Astro Boy, but I did that out of spite for the terrible Imachi movie. and then I watched the very good 2003 show. So this segment is less about 2011 and Roar and more of an overview of the whole brand of ThunderCats. I went from 2020 silly, 2010 serious, and 1980s camp in a span of a week. And now I've become a furry, I mean a ThunderCats fan. And honestly, comparing one show to another is kinda childish. They should all be viewed as their own shows, and honestly, I like each and every one of them. Me, the guy who didn't care about ThunderCats at first, is now a big ThunderCats fan. Like 2011, this show also gets an A. The 80s one gets an A. Now let's move on.
Call the ThunderCats before!
Shut up, you fuck.
But first, out of two shows created by Peter Braungart, and both respective main characters appeared in the 28 pilot for the second show that came out a year after the first show got cancelled. Unfortunately, Secret Bound for Awesome, or SMFA for short, is perhaps an acquired taste, which is the nicest compliment I can give it, for there must be an audience for a gross out dude bruh kind of show it is, and I personally don't vibe with it, and the fact that it got cancelled, perhaps it has something to do with the last episode being released only on iTunes. I think Cartoon Network didn't vibe with the show that much. There are like one or two good jokes, total of two characters I thought were okay, and it's relatively short. Man, there's not that much to say about the show. That's the saddest part. And
I shall call myself Green Lantern.
It's the Green Guardsman Show.
Green Guards?
Who would have thought they would make a spin-off of that one episode of Doc Dodgers with the green police guy who was barely even in the episode? The things they come up with at Warner Brothers. Jokes aside, it's a show about the most overrated version of the Green Lantern guy. The first one, and his adventures in space fighting bad guys who all originated from the mistakes from the Council of Smurfs' incompetence of balancing their mismanaged justice system. Haha! Police! The show is known for its new cast of original characters like Razor, the angry antihero, and Aya, the AI who learns how to feel emotion. I am not aware if those characters made it to the comics, but their story kinda continued in Young Justice, of all places, and it kinda felt like a good enough continuation. The show's alright. Green Lantern lore is interesting, and the show does pay tribute to many of the weird and obscure aspects of their world. But with how long the show lasted, all the cool ideas that the show wanted to explore just went away, with the exception of Razor and A dynamic, which is what most people remember. Personally, what I remember the most was Larfleeze, the DC answer to Gollum, and well, just a look at him. He's so cute. With that, I give the show an okay rank of B. I was spending entire days making short videos with my younger brother. It all just blossomed from there. I remember sitting in my room for hours editing my videos with 2 VCRs. It was painstaking, but I loved it. There was something magical about making stories come to life right in front of my eyes, no matter how crappy those stories were. That was a quote from the creator of the web series Annoying Orange and the Cartoon Network show of the same name. And like everyone else, I used to watch these videos back in the day and liked them for a time. Then I stopped watching them because I got older and this humor was getting irksome. The web show is still ongoing with a varied degree of quality and even has spawned into shit ton of merch side channels where Dan plays video games in character, which is the most scaling type of video content I've seen. And lastly, this show, which also stars Toby Turner of Tobotka's fame and other things I don't want to talk about. This is quite a maddening show, and not like in the I'm having a blast watching this, but more of a this is giving me a headache. I just need to know, who thought this was a good idea, giving YouTubers TV shows? Like, wasn't the appeal of YouTube back in the day that you could make your own thing? Maybe it worked other times, but these two, other being Fred, whom I've come to appreciate after watching Quinton's review on him, did not last that long on TV, and even some episodes of The Orange are missing, which might be a blessing in disguise, because I can't find it in me to watch all of this. Sinfully boring and gets a D.
I'm fucking leaving. I don't fucking care.
Based on the dream work DreamWorks franchise that is also based on a British children novel series comes one of the many shows based on the Dragon movies. A well-known trend with DreamWorks making tons of shows based on their films. Not as much as Disney, but that's for another time. If you want to see that, who knows. Anyway, yeah, I love DreamWorks movies, some less than others, and the Dragon franchise, with it being a complete series that I've seen, I don't know if the TV show have anything to offer me in return. After seeing the movies evolve, unlike any other DreamWorks movie, characters and status quo constantly changing and even having a conclusive ending, the show happens in between the first and second movie, and now there is yet another Dragon show that happens in modern days, so it's more of a Dragon show in spirit if anything else. I know some friends that love Disney shows based on movies. Hercules, Lilo and Stitch, heck, even Ember's New School that I thought was mid at best. But DreamWorks shows are something I don't see a lot of people saying it's a must-see. Maybe Penguins of Madagascar, or Boss Baby back in business for the meme. And from what I've seen from the Dragon show, it's alright, the message in the show gets easily translated back into the movies. It's kinda crazy how they got almost all the Hollywood stars from the movies to the show. The animation is stiff, but not terrible. I'd say give it a watch if you are really into the How to Train Your Dragons lore, and hear how they pronounce the name Dagger.
Dagger. Dagger. Dagger. Dagger. Dagger. Dagger's Dagger!
B. And here is the weakest DC show of them all. The one with Katana as a lead.
This is Katana!
And Alfred, who looks like Ra's al Ghul's bodyguard Ubu. Beware the Batman is a bold new take on the mythos by being about his early days as the Bat Guy, and his rogue gallery consisting on very obscure C-list villains. Which, sure, if the idea is to take characters that have not been given the spotlight as opposed to other Bat villains who have evolved into having their own mythos and even having their own shows and movies, but in the harshest way to describe them, they are portrayed as stand-ins for the more popular villains. Anarchy, Magpie, this guy I forgot he was in the show, Humpty Dumpty. Why does Batman have so many Alice in Wonderland villains? Where is the Duchess? The only standout villains are Professor Pig, who has been made more PG, and his heterosexual life mate Mr. Toad, who has teeth. And I hate it. There are two well-known villains in this show that come off as the worst part of the show, being Ra's al Ghul, who eats shits and dies very quickly, and Deathstroke. And in case you forgot, the Teen Titans version is my only favorite version of Slade Wilson, and I'm still waiting for another one, cause this one, that ain't him. Also Harvey Dent, who does get deformed but looks like Hush because, I don't know. Fuck! I've been talking about how much the villains suck that I forgot to talk about anything else, and I won't blame myself because there's nothing to say. The CGI animation is on par with the Green Lights Dude show, but the design of the characters are pretty bad. Batman looks like someone hit him with a shovel. D. And yeah, there's not much to say about this show other than they did the scene from The Dark Knight with Two-Face and Joker, but Joker is replaced with Anarchy because he's Anarchy, baby. Not the same. Peter Braungard returns with his other show that is better than SMFA. Uncle Grandpa, the omnipotent creature a la the likes of Mr. Mixels that is somehow related to every human that ever lived that goes on adventures and tries to help kids with their problem, but most of the time is the cause of the problem. Or just solves a problem that wasn't there, if that makes sense. He's like the Cat in the Hat, but more chaotic neutral rather than chaotic good like he was in the book. So he's just Mike Myers. This show is either hated or said to be highly underrated, and it's neither of them. It's good, but I admit that it's a very acquired taste. I admit that I like the more dirty, unhinged look that the pilot rocked over the cleaner version the show is known for, but the comedy is just as good. I guess people who never watched this show only know it for the Steven Universe crossover that nobody liked except me, cause life is too important to hate on something that Uncle Grandpa used his god powers to make the episode non-canon. But killing Pizza Steve is unforgivable. Oh, the show, it gets an A.
That's your Uncle Grandpa for you. drops in, shows you a good time, and then you never see him again. Just like your father.
Amethyst and Pearl and
John C.
The show that certainly had an impact on not just Cartoon Network, but just on animation as a medium. There can be an argument that something came first or did it better, but objectively, Steven Universe is best known for popularizing the positive representation of the LGBTQ community and not just used as a punchline for a very, very terrible joke.
I fucked your dad.
Anywho, this is the show I watched with my sister, and boy was that a journey. A show that plays off as a slice of life show that just happens to have aliens in it, that slowly becomes a show about existential character journey of one's identity, a lore revolving around a tyrannical kingdom, and even the ones you hold who are perfect is just as flawed. The show was made by Rebecca Sugar, a former writer and storyboard artist for Adventure Time, who wrote bunch of songs for said shows, and even more for her own show that were apparently based around their brother's childhood. Well, mostly the opening premise and probably not the rest of the show unless there's something I don't know. Like Steven starts off as your happy-go-lucky boy who's just the goodest boy in the world who gets challenged with the challenges of life that at first never does bother him at first, but the movie and Steven Universe Future, the 6th season epilogue, really does dwells into Steven's psyche, and it felt like a more proper ending to the show itself. The Crystal Gems are the most interesting trio of characters who start off as insane sitcom moms, get to be more and more fleshed out in this roller coaster of trauma after their experience of war, loss, and even trying to find their own place in the world. Other gems in this show are also just as interesting, even though they don't get as much attention with their story and are almost forgotten, or are most of the time just used for comedy and are just perfect for that. That does not matter. This show may be about some heavy themes, but it's also comedy and overall fun to see all the gems designed. In terms of its having flaws, yeah, it does have them, and some of them I do look past them for reasons, although the conflict of season 5 finale was very problematic, but Future kinda made up for it. The human casts are a very mixed bag, and though the best ones are very far and few in between, and the majority are kind of a drag. Lars kind of challenges the whole thing, and the animation errors are there, yes, but as someone who watched G1 Transformers, this does nothing for me. I don't think there's anything else I can say about Steven Universe other than I liked it a lot. S. Here is the only 2010 show, outside of few co-produced shows, that I had no idea what it was about. Like, I know a few things about every show in this retrospective, but this? I don't know what to say. Okay, I did one Google search and apparently this is a show based on original Lego property. And no, it's not something cool and interesting like Bionicle, Knight's Kingdom, Jago, or the Lego movie. That's for later. But the Mixels, who look like the weird abomination creatures at the end of the Lego movie. And I gotta say, this is obnoxious. It's about these block creatures who speak like cavemen running around being annoying creatures, but at least the show spares us with every episode being around 2 minutes or less. I gotta say it's good to have the foresight to see that the pixels don't have the staying power to hold a 11 to 30 minute episode because they don't have a plot. Is it also criticism towards the show that the writers don't have the imagination to write anything interesting from something so simplistic? One of my favorite things is when you have the most basic premises but can make something amazing from it, like Amphibia. Or I'm just overthinking about this show for babies. Then I realized that that was only season 1, while season 2 has 30-minute longer episodes. Maybe watching those longer special episodes would change my mind. No, I'm not gonna do that. The show gets a C. It ain't horrid, but it ain't good either. Ah yes, Tom and Jerry, the comedy classic that defined animation slapstick and has lasted for so long, with its highest of highs and 2021 movie comes the Flash animated 2014 show that is definitely a Tom and Jerry show. Like, there's nothing wrong with the show, except for maybe there is nothing much to say about it. Best way to describe this evergreen show is safe. I don't want to be one of those everything was good in the old days kind of guy, but Tom and Jerry kind of peaked back in the day. Like, nothing compares to the 40s, to the 50s, the one made by Chuck Jones or Gene Deitch, the movie where the duo talk and become friends and save a little girl from capitalism, which might be a bad movie, but I liked it and remembered it compared to this show. I'm not seeing the weird crossover movies that exist for reasons we will never know why, so maybe your children will like this, but then again, maybe they will like Tom and Jerry Kids, or Tom and Jerry Tales, or the anime. Oh my god, it's so cute. See? Made by Skylar Page, who got Me Too'd, comes a show about raw, unfiltered childhood and all the chaotic kid energy it has. Clarence is just a little boy who goes to school and makes friends while being a simple creature with
hello, Sumo. You want some applesauce?
special needs. His best friends are Jeff, who creeps me out and has 2 moms,
Buddy G, 2 moms and me, growing our own family tree,
and Sumo, who is somehow the most normal of 3 boyos and gives me Clam from Camp Laszlo vibes. This show has 2 moods. Either it's unhinged, that comes from how the kids look and act, or somewhat profound with how some episode focus on characters that isn't Clarence and feels like they are more than their archetypes. Everything just goes with the flow, and that is a weird description for a show like Clarence, which is quite the feat. Surprisingly, the show continued when Skylar got fired for, and didn't have a drastic change like Dexter Slap or Powerpuff Girls. A weird blessing from above. I recommend this show. It's not as obnoxious as you think it is. There are some self-awareness there, so it isn't screaming in your face all the time. Also, yeah, I know the whole story about Skylar. I just didn't want to get into this uncomfortable topic. The
loveliest lies.
And here is the third and final show spawned from Flapjack that I'm talking about, because Gravity Falls is Disney, and if you really want me to talk about Disney shows, then you know what to do. So this is a horror show in the night garden, little garden, over the garden wall. A miniseries about horror, which, if you didn't know, is something that Cartoon Network does surprisingly well. All around classics. I gotta say, it's very refreshing to have a show that's not an overall comedy. There are funny moments in the show from time to time, but its overall tone comes mostly from the creepy aesthetics, the ongoing story about the woodsman, and the dynamic between the brothers. With all the loud and fast shows, it's nice to have a quiet and slow show. The greatest surprise the show brings us is the amount of celebrities voice casts. Chris Lloyd, Elijah Wood, Jim Curry, John Cleese, and many, many more. Good stuff right here, so it gets an S. I have a brain disease called being a Sonic fan. I discovered Sonic on the internet from playing Sonic Flash and watching lots of sprite and or flash animation around the Blue Bird. For a long time I didn't play the games, which I guess was a blessing in disguise, but recently I played good and or decent ones. But my love for Sonic mostly comes from the comics, the movies, and the TV shows. Shows like Adventures of Sonic, which was a thing that exists. Sonic Sat AM, that was good, but I like the Archie take better. Sonic Underground, that I haven't seen. Sonic X, where I watched few of the first episode with my friend. Then I skipped to the 3rd season that ripped off Dragon Ball GT, and that was the only good part of Sonic X. And the topic of this segment, Sonic Boom. Also, I've watched Sonic Prime, it was good, but as I'm writing this, there are only 8 episodes. Sonic Boom was the most controversial thing to happen to Sonic at this point in time, which is saying a lot. With its game being a buggy mess, and the show that came 2 days before the actual game was released. And the show is probably the best thing to come out of the Boomverse. Also, I heard the 3DS games are decent, and the Sonic Boom Archie comic is comedy gold. And yeah, it's by far the best Sonic show I've seen. Just insane much, but still, I like it a lot. I like the stupid meta humor, the portrayal of Eggman being a goober, and Knuckles being a feminist.
You know, Amy, anytime someone calls attention to the breaking of gender rules, it ultimately undermines the concept of gender equality by implying that this is an exception and not the status quo.
The weird-ass animal characters made only for this show that feel like regulars from Simpsons, with how this show is written like a sitcom. And I've said this once and I'll say it again and again, the CGI animation does not bother me as much as it does a lot of other people. Not everything can be Pixar perfect, and that's okay. Granted, if you would have asked me back in the day what kind of show I wanted, I would probably say, just a Lion Flint's run from Archie. But now I've become more of a realist than an optimist when it comes to these sort of things, and I just accept what I got. And as I said with ThunderCats, we need to appreciate various adaptations. Sometimes you do your own thing and not just repeat the same thing over and over again. Something Disney remakes, which I've only watched the Aladdin one. This show gets an A. We got another TF show, and it's a sequel to everyone's favorite TF show that's not animated, Transformers Prime, which took the same dynamic of animated but replaced Prowl, cause let's be honest, who cares about Prowl, with RC, who looks and acts more like Chromia. And even the show starts with Starscream getting rid of Megatron very early in the show, just like animated. But I'm not here to talk about Prime with its more mature tone, but the sequel with its more kiddie-friendly tone and is regarded as the most mid-TF show with how toyetic it is compared to most TF shows that came around the same time. Okay, second most compared to Transformers Go. And maybe I should have checked out Rescue Bots, a show that people like more than Rid 2015, which is hilarious. I liked Bumblebee in Prime, but only because he didn't talk. I've never been a fan of Bumblebee losing his voice because the movie botched that idea, and Cyberverse made it a little annoying, but Prime made it charming, and here he becomes a very meh character in return when he gets his voice back. But does the new cast make up for it? Well, some of them. I enjoy Drift and his two adopted sons. Grimlock is very charming, and Strongarm, when she's not bickering with Sideswipe, is okay, but I generally don't care for Sideswipe or Fix It in the slightest. They're either very annoying or not interesting. Also, there are the human companions, Danny and his son Russell, who live at a scrapyard sale and just like the show, are very mid. The episodes are your typical monster of the week, with them capturing a bunch of random animal-based Decepticons, who are mostly new guys made for the show and will never appear again, like Ped. You guys like Ped? He's voiced by Mandark. Like with all the Beast Wars names they could have put in this show, they made a bunch of weirdos who make this show very forgettable. The only one I and everyone else likes is Steeljaw, who was reinvented from a Golden Lion cassette to a Blue Wolf car, became more iconic than his G1 counterpart, and as much as I like G1, new ideas are always welcome. A hypocritical thing for me to say is I complain about the original characters. Some TF Prime cast members come back for some fan service, like Starscream, who gets some ugly G1 redesign compared to his fabulous high heels, but it's not as bad as Soundwave. My favorite part are the story arcs with the Stunticons, which I praised in my top 5 best combiners list about Menasor, with the dueling personalities clashing with their combined form, and the Autobot console that was fairly short but still an interesting idea. Every Transformers show are built upon interesting ideas with various results. This show had a little too many with combiners, minicons, and power links. Hey, wait a minute. I think the show is decent altogether, and personally I liked its Japanese title more. Robots in Disguise is too generic and it's not as good as the other Robots in Disguise show that had Skybite and the whole 9/11 controversy. B for Bumblebee doing yoga.
We'll be there.
Based on Daniel Chong's webcomic 3 Bear Bears that is surprisingly funny, comes this wholesome ass show about 3 bears doing normal human things in human society that are trying to be internet famous. This show loves memes. Grizzly, the every bear, Panda, the weeaboo who really wants to get laid. Haha, funny because pandas are too lazy to fuck, and the fan favorite ice bear who has an axe on him all the time, along with a fun cast of supporting characters like Charlie the Bigfoot, and their antagonist Nom Nom, the cute famous koala, which I don't get. Koalas are nasty creatures. This show's greatest aspect for me is its chill vibe and apart from talking animals, this is the most slice of life show you can find in this retrospective, if Clarence is too much of Clarence for you. And as someone who has watched his fair share of slice of life cartoons and enjoyed, 3 Bear Brothers might be top tier. Also, it got a movie that felt like the perfect finale for like 2 years. Currently running is We Baby Bears, which is based on the handful of episodes where the bears were, well, babies. I guess it was that beloved by the fans. Heck, the final page of the webcomics is about the baby bears. So naturally, this feels like the perfect adaptation. Going for a more marketable baby bears is a smarter choice, marketing-wise. I mean, look at all these bears. Don't you want to buy them? Please buy them! Hey.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits.
What is this? Like the 4th Looney Tunes show I'm talking about? And it's okay, kinda gives me a similar vibe to the 2014 Tom and Jerry show, but this show does keep some of the unhinged vibe as the old shorts, unlike the Cat and Mouse show that felt very safe. But I guess the people didn't care that much about this show since what came before was the best thing of all time. And for a show that goes back to the roots of its origin, the 2020 show could be argued as being a superior one. What I find interesting about this show, apart from the name, is that it took until season 2 to be like, hey, maybe we should have the rest of the Looney Tunes and not just Bugs the Bun. There are some new characters here, but will they come back? No, the designs here are noteworthy.
Alright, let's do it. This is fine. Yeah, that looks kind of terrible. Oh god, look at that Elmer Fudd. Oh god, oh this is worse. Oh, what did they do to my boy? Oh no, I do not like that. Okay, Falkland. Ew, it's unhinged. It looks like he has killed people. Alright. Okay, this one is worse. This is actually the worst one. No argument here. Okay, so they decided to redesign him by giving him clothes for the first time. I guess that's an improvement. But then again, no one gives a shit about Pepe Le Pew. It looks demonic. Oh god, no! Ew! Ew!
It is a B for Buns Bugsy.
Cool!
Another Scooby-Doo show, and it's the most infamous I know of. Scooby-Doo wasn't that terrible, you guys. The one with a Brickleberry look, and as someone who has seen one episode of Brickleberry and 3-ish episode of Paradise PD, this Scoop show looks 100% better than those two. Be Cool Scooby-Doo, as dumb as that title is nothing out of the ordinary compared to other Scooby shows. In fact, like Mystery Incorporated, this show tried to do something bold compared to the majority of Scoop shows, beside the art style. This show gave Daphne a new personality of a weird girl to make her stand out more compared to her older incarnation. And yeah, when asking old Scooby fans, Daphne is not the favorite one for most people because of her gender roles and mostly used for hand service. But it wasn't good enough, and she just went back to her old girl boss self, which was also a take on Daphne they did, and it mostly stuck. But overall, this show is your by-the-book Scooby-Doo show, and if you have not seen this show, check it out, it's fine. It's no Mystery Incorporated, What's New, Where Are You, or a pup named Scooby-Doo, but at least not Velma, show I've not seen and will never see. I give this a high B. Oh yeah, I forgot Shaggy's trans in the show.
Shaggy's a man. Another first. Take that, Uncle Dave.
S.
Trans rights. Previously on Long Live the Royals.
Made by a regular show storyboard artist, Sean Shellis, who comes a very Very short show about silly British monarchs doing random wacky things. And since it's a miniseries, I'll make it short. It's okay, B. Based on the children book series by the Howell couple, James and Deborah, comes the show that only 8 out of 104 episodes were shown on CN, only to be moved to Boomerang, the channel that mostly just showed reruns of Hanna-Barbera shows and has only recently decided to release their own shows, like the other 3 shows I'm talking about, or Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, and a reboot of Wacky Races that nobody watched. The show is animated in Flash, and from time to time can look very good when given the time and talent, while other times it's rigged puppets constantly on the move that look like shit. Nothing amazing like Wak Fu, but nothing terrible like The Nut Shack. Anyway, the show is cute, characters are simple enough to like, and it has that Scooby-Doo charm of being about horror without it directly being horror. I give it an A. It's the web shorts turned into a show with the gimmicky swords that Eric Bauza screams the name of in every episode, like Benjamin Tanjamin did.
Mighty Magiswords!
In the adult serious show that were bad, and the Game Grumps are voice actors in this, mostly Eric, who plays like 10-ish characters. And Dan plays himself, doing his DJs in PJ's voice.
I'm Dan! And golly, you're the first team to beat my maze in quite some time! That's right, tiny ladies! Me, Draco, and our dog, Sergeant Fidoodle, are here to give you awesome life advice!
Man, I remember one of shitty Mondo Media shows more than I care about talking about this show. Not gonna lie, this show is kinda boring. The humor is just explaining the joke as it's being performed. Not much to say about the cast. The brother-sister dynamic is okay, though it has been done better in other shows. And the art style mimics a rubber hose style look that can only work if it moved like such. In my opinion, maybe this is okay for you. Radicles from OKKO makes a cameo in the last episode, and oh boy, I really want to talk about that show compared to this show, because I don't have any strong feelings towards it. See?
You guys want to take another crack at it? Or do you need to sit out a turn so you can cry while your momsy-womsy
Mickey Mouse.
It's been a while since we got another Justice League show, not counting Young Justice, and it's the most short-lived of them all. This show follows a very similar tone to The Brave and the Bold, especially with a bigger focus on Plastic Man and Booster Gold. Also Firestorm is in there, but the Brave and the Bold version was much better in my opinion. And with the episodic formula of heroes team up fighting bad guys. Some new features like John Constantine, a very non-family friendly magic man, and Dexstar, the angriest cat in the world. The show came and went away so abruptly that it was kinda shocking. Maybe it clashed with what DC wanted to focus more on with their gritty animated movies and shitty live-action movies, so they just pulled the plug on it. And don't get me started on the decline of the CW shows, except Legend of Tomorrow. That show was good.
Yeah, his girlfriend's a guy. Anyway, this is too much for me.
Which is a shame, because this show is tons of fun. Any show that features Darkseid in a taxi and John Lovitz in a Superman outfit is doing something right. It may not be as smart and deep as the DCAU, but it's hella charming. I give it an A. Oh my god, I get to talk about this show finally! This is quite the rarity, because I knew about this show even before it aired, since I watched the old pilot that was almost forgotten, and just thought it would just be a one-off pilot that went nowhere. Boy, were we dumb. That short came out in 2013, but then in 2016, we got a few shorts in a row where the characters got some cleanup. Then 2017 rolls around, and we got a show. One noteworthy thing, since it's the rarest case where I watched every episode when they were coming out and finished it to the end. Also Steven Universe Future. So yeah, I've been kind of following this show for a while, from its pilot to finale, and man, this is good stuff. This show does almost everything I want out of a show. A truly masterpiece of a passion project where you and your friends have come together to put almost any wacky idea in a show and make it work. The utmost glow by its creator
Ryan Jones Quartet is something to behold, since I knew of him first from Bravest Warriors. Although my gripes with this show are very minuscule. At first I thought the old pilot name was better than the show's actual name, but I've grown to like it. Sometimes I felt the dialogue was a little babyish, and obviously the very on-the-nose disdain in season 3 finale that they had planned more after the show ended. But all in all, everything else I love to death. I love the overarching story about the goodest of boys, KOs, and his family and his dark self, the funny stupid ways the show tackles subject matter like gun control. I love the characters like Lord Boxman and his dumb robot children, Mr. Gar, KO and his co-workers and friends like Dendy. Oh, and the stupid amount of crossover with the Crazy of Things, Captain Planet, Sonic the Hedgehog, and just all the Cartoon Network currents and former stars, and yet another Scooby-Doo crossover, but not with the Scooby Gang, but the Monster Girls from the Ghoul School TV special, which is like the most obscure of Scooby-Doo cuts, even more than fucking Flim Flam. I'm impressed I stuck through this show for so long, and thankful to Ian for making it. Hey, remember the Lego movie? That was a movie that had no right to be that good, surprisingly. Their version of Batman was popular enough to get his own movie. Apart from the licensed characters, there were few original characters, and for some reason, Unikitty got a show, and is voiced by Tara Strong, cause of course he is. And it was okay. I like Unikitty fine, and her friends are fun too. The humor is quick paced, that works sometimes. I think the animation and the look is good enough. I am however fascinated by these Lego based shows that's 2D animated like Monkey Kid, a show that was animated by the same guys who worked on Rise on TMNT, Glitch Tech, and Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. In short, it's gold. It reminds me how there are two Muppet Baby shows and neither of them uses puppets. In short, this show is fine, a high B, or low A, it doesn't matter at the end of it. Welcome. So, this is a deranged show, but then again I am deranged who makes deranged videos, so it's perfect. Apple and apple, not welcome. This show was made and stars George Skendi, who plays the titular Apple, and also stars, but not made by, Richard Ayoade of IT Crowd fame, and also stars in my favorite show Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, who plays the titular Onion. I knew nothing about the show apart from Richard Ayoade, and I had no knowledge of its critical response. Then again, I don't look up or watch other people's reviews on shows, because I want to write these reviews as my opinion. But reading bad IMDb reviews is kinda funny. Lame, stupid, who made this? It's food with faces. No. This show can best be described as Flight of the Conchords for a younger audience, mostly because the main duo like to sing, and for the most part these songs are alright. Also like that show, it has this dry, awkward, and cringy humor where App and On do weird and stupid things like causing a train accident. I think this show is very charming and even hilarious from time to time, which was a surprise. Some people may look at this show and go,
This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is garbage. This is so much garbage that can make an awful smell that will get me brain dama.
But really now, who the fuck cares? Make your own decision. If I say a show you love is bad, then just go and watch it more cause you like it and tell me why you love it. It's always fun to hear what other people have to say in a positive way. Also like this vid, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that.
This is important. Let's check it out. Good.
Apple and Onion gets an A.
Cotton candy and onion forever.
The third and final TF show I'm gonna talk about. Like OKKO, this was a show I watched all the episodes when it was coming out, and this might be just as good as animated. I mean, this show has Skybite in it.
It is I, Skybite.
And McAdams.
There will be no fighting here.
Well, okay, season 1 was a slow burn with the whole getting Bumblebee his voice and memories back, and he is by far the least interesting character in the show, because everything else from the mainstays like Optimus Prime, Megatron, Soundwave, and newcomers like Clopper, Shadow Striker, and Wild Wheel are top notch in the show. Even weird takes on Grimlock are perfect. Although season 1 was okay with one episode standing out where they fucking murdered Blur, season 2, 3, and the 2 specials are my favorite TF things I've seen, and compared to what was coming out on Netflix, I take Cyberverse any day. And goddamn, this is criminally short. They went kinda far with some iconics to obscure TF content that gets me in the feels, and as rushed the finale was, I felt like the 2 specials made up for it. Man, if it weren't for the specials, I would be kinda sad. Although, I would prefer the continuation of Transform Animated. This was solid stuff. I kinda forgot to mention this back in the Teen Titans Go section, which by the way, I don't think Go is better than the original. That was a joke. They are equally good. But I forgot to mention DC Nation. It was a collection of DC shorts made by different animators that may or may not have been a bunch of pilots to make into shows. Some were good. Others were
Superman of Tokyo!
That felt like a fever dream, but 2 of them, being New Teen Titans, which you can tell from the super deformed look, may have been the inspiration for Teen Titans Go. It was also Super Best Friends Forever, that obviously spawned this show, and Super Best Friends Forever sounds like a better title, cause this one could easily been confused by the other show of the same name. These shorts and this show was made by Lauren Faust, Craig McCracken's wife, and a fellow cartoonist who helped develop Foster's Home with Craig, and also went to create My Little Pony show that...
Hang on, hey, I've got the same both toy, and it turns out I want Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash.
People went crazy over for.
Alright, so I'm pretty sure you're aware of Princess Celestia being portrayed as a tyrant, an near natural, and God forbid, a molester.
Speaking of My Little Pony, even after she left the show around the 2nd season, you can really tell she had some of MLP energy put into the show. This show, named after another show that was also set in a school, is interesting. The plot is basically an AU of DC heroes and villains set in high school with many high school tropes, and unlike the predecessors, this is more tame in comparison and at least has some form of seriousness put into it. The main cast of Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Fluttershy, and the others that don't have My Little Pony comparisons are a fine bunch. The rest of the supporting characters are very weird. They are written in this way like how girl-oriented shows write boys. They are stupid, that's the joke. The villains are very one-note and get strange gimmick. School reporter Penguin and rockstar Ra's al Ghul, with the exception of the iconic lesbian Ivy and Harley. And since the show is written by the My Little Pony Gen 4 creator, we get a bunch of morals learned at the end of the episode that we get from every high school-based shows. Sometimes we don't learn anything at all, like the stupid egg episode that every school show does. The weirdest aspect of the show to me are the numerous Teen Titans Go crossovers that would not be a major factor to point out, except the crossover movie served as the show finale. This might be one of the weirdest CN show endings out there, not by content, but by the presentation. There's generally nothing wrong with this show. It might just be your personal preferences that will decide what you feel about it. I'm not madly in love with it, but I like it nonetheless.
But what does an oddball such as myself consider manly?
Victory, Valentino!
It's time for a show with some Hispanic representation. Cause if Disney likes doing it, why not Cartoon Network? Also Nickelodeon did that too, before Disney decided to make a handful of it. Remember when Disney tried to copyright the Day of the Dead holiday? And for those who are asking, if you think I forgot about Mucha Lucha, I didn't. It's just I'm not talking about the 10 other networks under CN and the ones who own CN. Oops, I'm getting off topic. Victor and Valentino has been described as being like Gravity Falls, which is a funny coincidence since the Parpin brothers Joss and Justin are credited as art directors characters for the show, and Gravity Falls itself. Also DuckTales, which did have an episode set in Mexico. And yeah, this is just Gravity Falls with more Aztec and Mayan mythology in it, and it's pretty neat. The half-brothers dynamic is fairly decent, depending on how you feel towards both boys. Valentino is more mellow and reminds me a lot of Steven Universe, and Victor is quite grating at the beginning of episodes. Best part of this show is its emphasis on Mexican culture. The show also has the weirdest of crossovers with a Latin American Cartoon Network show, Villainous, aka It's Just Evil Con Carne. And like the Uncle Grabba Steven Universe crossover, it's not canon. Despite me picking on Disney before, I fairly liked their shows that focused on Hispanic characters, and sometimes dwell on their heritage that I find cool. That's quite the best way to describe this show. It's kinda cool. Little bumps here and there, so gets a fair A. Finally, the two dads and a baby show I never knew I wanted. The story of Mau Mau Mau, yes, that's his full name.
Dude, is your name Mau Mau Mau?
I don't want to talk about it, okay?
And his friends working as sheriffs at Pure Heart Valley, hilarity ensues. This show marks the first time I get to talk about the legendary animation studio Titmouse, who have been doing a fine job making some good stuff for 23 years. They worked on a handful of Adult Swim shows, the Animaniac reboot, and that cursed zebra cartoon from the Freddy Got Fingered movie. Do you even remember that movie? I will never forget.
He's a child molester!
What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, Mau Mau. Mau Mau is generally a fun show that I had no prior knowledge on. It's also very short, which is a shame, because if you ask me, this show reminds me of Mighty Magiswords in terms of medieval-esque setting, but isn't very obnoxious. I don't know, there's just something that draws me into the show more, like how Mau Mau is kind of a dick, but is still written to be a likable. Adorabat just existing. King Snugglemane, who is just the gayest thing and I love him. The main villain is called Orangasnake, who is just a snake and orangutan in a codependent relationship. That fucking theme song. And the episode about Adorabat's past that just, oh my gosh, the feels. Look, the show's just good. Great even. A. Back to Klops is alright though.
Come on, motherfuckers, come on! Come on, motherfuckers, come on! Yeah! Come on, motherfuckers, come on! Come on, motherfuckers, come on!
Hop on board. This is the last show I'm gonna talk about, starting a train of talking cats and existential trauma. Holy shit, Infinity Train is so good, and I did not expect what I was getting into. An anthology show about broken people going aboard a train of bullshit, which origin and how it makes sense will never be explained, because the show ended prematurely with 3 good seasons and an okay 4th season. I wonder what about the show drew me into it for a while, and it's not the setting, the characters, or the stories, but the tone and the subject matter really interested me. Although I do question the logic of the train's purpose, problems every character goes through gets treated with respect and care. Oh, and every season has their own protagonists. The first season is about Tulip, a girl who wants to make video games and eats onions, who has to deal with her parents getting divorced. Relatable. The second season is about one of the denizens of the train, a mirror clone of Tulip who wants to live her own life instead of being a reflection. That got very existential at the end. Third season. Fucking, I'm gonna spoil anything. That shit went so hard. It's the darkest shit I've seen from Cartoon Network, and I don't know if they can ever top that. And the 4th season was fine. Like, I get it, you wanna mellow down after all that, but it could have been better. And with that said, the final show in this retrospective gets an S.
Motherfucker.
And that's it. Sorry I couldn't talk about shows like Greg in the Creek, Summer Camp Island, Elliot from Earth, The Fungus, Tick and Sweek, and my personal favorite, Jellystone. At first I thought I would not care that much for the 2010s compared to the 90s or the 2000 shows that define my childhood, but 2010s represent something even more important to me, and that is growing up. Shows that have challenged the longtime fans and even the new ones. Sure, there are big stinkers here and there, but the best outweigh anything else. And as I watched them when they came out and got to experience the shows coming and going, it might be the most personal part of the entire retrospective. The 90s I discovered it, 2000s I lived it, but the 2010s is where I learned to embrace change. Grew up but still learned to enjoy the future.
Good show! Jolly good show!
But now let's do my top 10 best shows and bottom 5 worst shows. Start with the worst.
Number 5.
Squirrel Boy. At this point, I should just watch Duckman.
Number 4.
My gym partner's a monkey. My friends made this joke about the show being called My Gym Partner's a Monk, and I think putting the theme song from that show in there was worth it.
Number 3.
Mad. Apart from the Spyverse Spy Tunes, everything is overall terrible. Problem Solverz. I lied. It does hurt my eyes. Ike, Lou, and fucking Og. What is worse than being terrible? Being boring. I'm not gonna go through the rest of the shows like other ranking videos do, because I think it's stupid. Everything in A, B, and C rank can be changed if I feel like looking back at these shows. But let's go to the S rank and see what are my top 10 favorite CN shows.
10.
No, what are you doing? Stop pressing it!
Okay, KO. Everything between 9 and 1 are shows that I have more attachment to, since this show is rather recent in memory, but still good enough.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. I like them equally.
Number 8.
Justice League and Unlimited. My gateway to DC Comics.
Number 7.
Batman Brave and the Bold. If Justice League is my gateway, then Batman Brave and the Bold is my true love of DC Comics. Gumball. Please bring it back.
Number 5.
Ed, Ed and Eddie. Fuck America. Powerpuff Girls. Fucking zombie magician.
Number 3.
Transformers Animated. I can talk about that show all day. Kids Next Door. Maybe it's my realistic half that made me say I was okay with Galactic K&D not being a thing, but the optimistic half says otherwise. Or was it the obsessed half?
But I want it now!
Number 1.
Adventure Time, a show I enjoyed every second of when the new episodes came out and also watched with my friends. Also, I'm excited for the Fiona and Cake show. I relate to this Simon a lot. And you might be thinking, what does it matter what I think? Well, ask my friends if they wanted to share their opinions on their favorite shows. And I hope as I'm writing this and recording this, people cared enough to actually do it. But what are the chances of that happening?
See, when I was your age, we watched a show called The Crap Twins. Not because we liked it, but because it was the only thing on during the middle of the night. It's about these twins. One is blue, he's the evil one, and I don't remember his name, but the white good one, his name was Girl Pants. And Girl Pants has a friend who's like a swamp gnome, and the blue evil one wants to eradicate the swamp in some episodes, but Girl Pants doesn't allow him to do that because the little swamp gnome family lives there and they're like behind his house and stuff. Anyways, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to be epic.
There's a lot I could have talked about, but I want to take a minute to encourage you to go watch Camp Lazlo. It's not necessarily the Cartoon Network show dearest to my heart, but it's one that I think about very often. It It captures the essence and feeling of being a kid so well, and how you have to make your own fun all the time, like staring at a pine cone. It's an excellent way to hone one's flag capturing skills. I love the fact that the animals used for the characters are all non-standard ones that you wouldn't normally see in another show with animal characters. There is not a single character who is a dog. Instead, we have a banana slug. I love Slinkman so much. The show also has some fantastic art direction. Hey Nush, put some backgrounds on screen if you'd be so kind. Like, just look at how pretty that is. The color palette has such a warm, summery feeling to it. I just like this show a lot. That and this show taught me what a platypus was, and I feel like I should get points for that.
One of my friends didn't want to do a voiceover, but they did want to take part, so they wrote a script for me, and I'm gonna read it right now. Adventure Time is a great show. It's got something for everyone. A sweet story sprinkled in between random episodes of everyday life in the post-apocalyptic land of Ooh. Whether you like the randomness of an old tiny elephant biting into a crystal apple and later fall in love with a pig, the more theory-included episodes, or the ice skiing tragic backstory, characters are cool, colorful, and fun. And yes, I guess Justin Roiland was there. The story is about Finn the human boy, who is for some reason the last human on Earth, and his adopted brother Jake, who is a dog who has similar powers like that Rubber Man character for that anime about seamen. Personally, I like Marceline, the bisexual battle axe space playing goth vampire queen, also Bimo. The songs are amazing, many played by Marceline, but the originals are great and just as jamming for a colorful children's show like Adventure Time.
Making pancakes.
What makes Adventure Time great for me personally is not the art style, as easy it is on the eyes, not the eye-bleeding techno color palette, or any of these good points I have already mentioned. No, it's the fact that if I looked into it closer, the aftermath of the Great Mushroom War can be seen everywhere, and this cartoon has the balls to have LGBT representation. It's slowly happening to cartoons, and that's great. Watch Adventure Time, smiley face.
Come along with me, and the butterflies and bees. We can wander through the forest and do so as we please, living so merrily.
I love Flapjack.
I am going to talk about my favorite show for a pretty short amount of time. Hey, one show that I did grow up with that I really liked back then was The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. It is a show that did exist in Cartoon Network, and it's still one of my favorites to this day because of the weird unhinged humor that it has. The show doesn't have one main character. It has what is called a tritagonist. English is hard. So we have three main characters: Flapjack, the child that means well, and also the character that the show is named after him, and Captain Knuckles, the weird little creature Bloom Man. I'm not even sure if he's human. And then we have Puppy, the real and the adopted mother, not father, but it would be kind of cool, but hey. Of Flapjack, who is the best part of the show. Even with its unhinged humor, it does have wholesome moments in the show, mainly with Buppy and Flapjack, and I think that's very cute. Buppy doesn't really like Knuckles, and they're like divorced parents. I would rather say Knuckles would be rather the weird uncle that Buppy doesn't want around their kid. But we're not here to talk about that. The humor is something else when it comes to what was airing at the time on Cartoon Network. Like, I would consider like Chowder a little bit, but more unhinged at times. Like, one of the does stick to mind that comes up when somebody mentions the show is probably the cat close-up. Like, what the fuck? But hey, it's pretty funny. The show is mainly about Captain Knuckles telling Flapjack about this mystical island called the Candy Island, and it's a place made out of candy. But we never get to see them reach it in the show. There was one time where they did get to see it, if I remember correctly. And also, I'm pretty sure Candy Wife is from the place, so it's not really a mystical island. It's an actual place. But hey. But the show ended up with them eating too much candy from Peppermint Lady's bar, the husband of Candy Wife, that they end up turning realistic, quote unquote. And I'm getting kicked out of Storm Long Harbor because they looked so revolting to everybody, even though the whole point of Storm Harbor is everything looks revolting, but Flapjack, Bubby, and Knuckles look too much revolting to everybody. So it was a weird ending, but ending nonetheless. And we do get the final final shot with Bubby and Flapjack having like a wholesome moment. It's been so long since I've seen that scene, so don't quote me on that. But hey, yeah, it's one of my favorite shows from my childhood, teenage years, I guess. Too old, but hey.
So, whenever people mention Cartoon Network, there is one show that always comes to my mind, and that is Adventure Time. Now, why is it Adventure Time? I did not grow up with Adventure Time. Adventure Time came out when I was a teenager. You know, I grew up with Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls. For the most part, those shows came out when I was a baby, but I grew up with them, you know. Whereas Adventure Time came out when I was a teenager, and I was kind of close to adulthood. So why is Adventure Time the one show that always comes to my mind whenever people talk about Cartoon Network? Well, I think the reason is actually pretty simple. Adventure Time has just boundless creativity and imagination. Like, it is the quintessential cartoon show, in my personal opinion. Now, you don't have to like the humor. You don't have to like the jokes. You don't even have to like Adventure Time at all. But you have to acknowledge just how impressive that show is. Like, just the sheer amount of, how do I put this? Well, just the insane amount of creativity. Like, the sheer magnificent display of imagination and passion. Just, I'm not very good at explaining myself, but I guess my point is, Adventure Time is honestly one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows. As for the reason why, well, there's just something special about it, you know? There's just like, it came out relatively recently, but it still evokes a sort of feeling of nostalgia, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
For my part, the Cartoon Network series that stands out tall above the rest for me is Adventure Time. While every series is capable of hitting some home runs in world building or character depth, I feel like the most consistent and reoccurring one is in Adventure Time. Adventure Time has tirelessly committed to building out its characters with great backstories and emotional depth that makes you feel like the characters are quite real and truly alive in their world. The series also, time and time again, gets super heavy with its material and manages to touch on topics that you normally don't see in series aimed for a younger audience. Its happy-go-lucky comical style of animation and design easily turning people away from thinking that there's depth to it. But I would say what really makes it special for me is the growth of characters in the series. Characters go through turmoil and actually change from often cataclysmic events that happen to them. It's tiring to watch a character like Ben 10 or Bart Simpson only change and grow up when the story requires them to, only for them to rubber band back to their usual baseline self. The best example of this in Adventure Time is Finn, wherein he develops a big brother-like relationship, for instance, with a plant-like magical copy of himself made from wicked magic that's named Fern. becomes apparent later on that Fern is very out of control and rash when trying to do the hero work that Finn does, causing the two to butt heads a lot and eventually fight. And in said fight, Finn accidentally kills Fern, the consequences of which causes Finn for the rest of the series to take violence and fighting that much more seriously than he did as his usual swashbuckling hero self prior to the event. All in all, though, these factors, and many more minor ones that I take too long to talk about, caused me to consistently revisit Adventure Time. And I highly recommend it to anyone seeking a new, lively and adventurous show to watch.
Alright, I was asked to talk about Cartoon Network, my favorite one, and I had to think, 'cause I never grew up with Cartoon Network. I just saw some of the shows on the television that we had, the station. But that was Courage, The Cowardly Dog Show, Kids Next Door, Samurai Jack. Yes, Samurai Jack. And Johnny Bravo. A little bit of Johnny Bravo. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I started watching Cartoon Network, and boy, did I become a fan. Of the old original ones, Courage the Cowardly Dog will always be the top. It is glorious. The style is so fresh, and just the characters, and it just feels disgusting, but you want to watch more. How perfect is that? Okay, Samurai Jack will always be in my heart at some place, and that one will always be one of the top of the old ones. I just really do love the story, and it took them 15 years or so. I don't remember completely, but it took half of my life to get the last season, and that is a fucking dedication. That is a dedication that you actually managed to do for the fans. And boy, was that ending beautiful. Of the new shows, I will have to say Gumball and Darwin. The reason I started to love it was one scene and one line that Darwin said. It's so bleak it could be Danish. I fell in love. They made fun of the Danish people. How good is that? I hate the Danish, but that's just me. But that's part of being Icelandic. Anyway, then there is another one that is... what was the name? Oh yeah, I love Steven Universe, but man, I could not watch the first season. It was so slow, and I would... this would be my most favorite show ever if Steven Universe, the main character, wasn't in it. God, I can't stand this guy. But the story is great. The lore is fantastic. The art style, the songs, just mwah. The main character. So that's why it gets low for me. But everyone always loves it and all of it. And I'm like, can I just get the gems? I like the gems. Give me better, don't. The shows have been so good lately. But then it just declined as a whole. Especially Disney. But we are talking about Cartoon Network. And I don't know. These have been my favorite. And even though I didn't grow up with them, I really do love cartoons. And Cartoon Network was a fun thing. And when the shows were showed on Boomerang, I watched it like the whole night for a few weeks because I just couldn't get enough of it. So after a while, I had seen all of it. Anyway, I did this for my friend, and he asked me about Cartoon Network and what was my favorite one. I still have to say Courage the Cowardly Dog. It was glorious. And you never know where it started and never know where it ended. Just a perfect story like Tom and Jerry. Anyway, bye!
I've been watching Cartoon Network for a long time. I remember a lot of what we consider classics now when they were starting out. Kung Chicken, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd and Eddy. I remember a lot of them as pilots on What a Cartoon. So I could talk for a really long time about cartoons from Cartoon Network. I'm going to focus on my two favorites. They're my favorites for very different reasons, but they're still my favorites. One is codename Kids Next Door. The other is Samurai Jack. Both are incredibly imaginative. Both have a very unique art style. One's fairly more lighthearted than the other. The other one's more action-packed. But what really clinches these two for me is they got to finish their story. Eventually. Yeah, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Kids Next Door is wonderfully imaginative about the world, how the kids view it. It's actually quite cynical about how everyone just hates kids and is actively trying to make kids miserable. It's kind of really bitter. But, the kids fight back with vengeance. It's hilarious. And as the seasons progress, they actually start making a more coherent world building, a plot, and really developed. Shame the end was a bit rushed, but, they got to end, which is more than a lot of shows do get, unfortunately. Samurai Jack is my favorite work by Genndy Tartakovsky. I'm probably saying the name wrong. It's his unique line art, his unique style, his coloring, his fun way to get around censorship by making everyone he slices up to bits either a robot that explodes or an alien that doesn't have blood. So, aside from this final season, which was Adult Swim, which took a long time to get greenlit, but our boy Genndy stuck with it until he got to finish his story. Finishes on a bittersweet note, but he finished it, goddammit. That's what important. But yeah, if I would recommend anyone to showcase the wide spectrum of hilarity that is Cartoon Network, I'd go for Kids Next Door for imagination and comedy, and Samurai Jack for action-packed Western-style cartoons.
After watching Batman the Animated Series as a little child, I was thrilled and excited to watch another series with a similar theme and Teen Titans deliver in that area. Growing up, I watched a lot of Cartoon Network every time I got the chance, but Teen Titans for me is the first series that was broadcasted on Cartoon Network that I needed to watch every episode to gain full and proper knowledge of the whole story. The series is in short summarized about a team of superheroes called Teen Titans, straight from DC Comics, and tells of their antics, challenges, and difficulties with either a villain of the week or a returning threat who will strike hard at the end of each season. The characters are based on known superheroes from the comics, but they some have been casted with stereotypical tendencies that I love. For example, you have the Robin, who is the leader of the pack and is like a popular kid that everyone wants to be with. Cyborg, that could be described as the football jock. And then we have Raven, the stereotypical goth, who wants to be like reclusive and alone with her own thoughts. Then you have Starfire, the foreign exchange students with like unknown knowledge about the universe and quirky individuals about new things that are uncommon to her. And then, of course, like Beast Boy, who can be considered like the class clown with always a joke, but always a serious manner of it. But the heroes are not as good as their villains, and Teen Titans has great variety of dynamic villains that shape the characters. And as an individual series, it really gave us a plethora of unknown or not very popular characters from DC Comics. It sounds like scraping the barrel, but every character is fully fleshed, has ambition, weaknesses, or other distinct personality that distinct them from one another. Every season ended with a climactic season finale where at the end of the day the heroes become triumphant, but not without facing trials and many failures on the way. What makes Teen Titans special, of course, is whether or not with top-notch comic book action and a unique style of animation that blend both Western animation and anime, is it can both blend comedy and drama at the same serious level. There are some episodes which are total madness and may be considered detours in the linear storyline, but it makes it so much rewarding in the end when the villains in season finale almost or literally take over the world. Slade, for example, makes Robin fall under his leadership. The Brotherhood of Evil are ready to strike with their world domination plan, but the best finale in my area are when Trigon dominates the Earth, and when Terra, the Earth telekinetic, betrays the Titans, along with Slade bringing the Titans to their knees. I remember seeing the ads on Cartoon Network about the end storyline, about this huge payoff and how can the Titans fix the destruction that Trigon has wreaked upon the Earth. It was huge, and that was something not a kid at the time could miss. Teen Titans stand out in its unique way on its way is that although it is a cartoon show with comic action and various key characters, it is not afraid to delve into serious matters. It is very sincere when a show meant for children and young adults tackles difficult issues and taboo that brings up questions, difficult emotions, and actually treats the viewer with respect and like an adult. There are themes of depression, bottling up feelings, xenophobia, PTSD, racism, mourning, and loss. That is like some serious matter that is not very common in cartoons or otherwise, unless showing wacky characters or funny scenarios. No, it's like blended with this psychological element and show them how it can be tackled and gives a good example for serious matters that some people don't even know how to handle. Teen Titans is a must-watch show towards being a part in the Cartoon Network canon, because it's a show that tells well-written stories, fleshed-out characters, an example for series that tackles serious matter along with kick-ass action and laughable comedy. Teen Titans.
Hi, I'm here to talk about Megas XLR, a Cartoon Network TV show from about 2004. It was a great show growing up with. Very, very stupid. Like really, really stupid. But the fun kind of stupid. The stupid you want as a kid. Like, just creative, great monsters and wacky adventures and traveling to other planets, and growing up not realizing, but there were a lot of references to old anime and a lot of older cartoons and sci-fi that I really recommend watching Megas XLR. But the plot is basically about a fat loser that accidentally finds a giant robot from the future. And with his friends, he, fixes it up and replaces the destroyed head with a very nice car. So it's a giant robot with a car for a head. And, what more for our premise as a 10-year-old kid do you need than that to just love the show? Also, there's a girl that comes from the future and, joins him on his adventures and, tries to guide him to be, a force for good, a hero instead of just a fat, stupid slob that only focuses on getting slushies, playing video games, and getting Philly cheesesteaks, which are good food, but, there's more to life. And his cynical, skinny friend that only cares about getting babes and money. And, yeah, that's, the basic premise of the show. Well, you also have recurring characters, recurring villains, voiced by great voice actors. Like Bruce Campbell as, basically just Bruce Campbell, floating head. It's hilarious. Also, squid people that wear robot armor that gives them arms and legs, and it's basically a mech cartoon wacky adventures. There are many, many great episodes about Megas. There is the WWE episode where he like goes to a giant coliseum and it's basically just World War Wrestling but with giant robots. Great episode. He buys like an old video game where he doesn't know how to figure it out, but it turns out it's actually ancient alien tech and it's a prison, like a dimensional prison for like the most dangerous monsters and criminals throughout galactic history, and he just accidentally releases them all and then has to fight them. The slushy episode where he's just trying to get a slushy, but every goddamn time he's about to get a slushy, the 7-Eleven just gets vaporized by some giant evil like spider robot, but he just does not want to fight it. Bruce Campbell is one of my favorite actors, and he's just amazing as a return villain in the show. It's always stupid, like when he's on screen, especially because it's just framed after his head, so it's just like, and he's like Murdoch from Marvels, and so it's just like, hanging there, just like. So it's great. There is a lot to say about the show, and just lasted for about 2 seasons before being cancelled, sadly. Today, still today, it is one of the shows I most want a remake or a continuance or a relaunch. It was just a great show, great creativity, and it was just a lot of fun. And I kind of miss shows like this that are just stupid, action-packed, manly shows, because even though the characters themselves aren't like, the super masculine, but they're still guys, they're having guy fun, robots blowing shit up, wrestling, stuff like that, and it's done in a great, great way.
Space Ghost Coast to Coast is a show about Space Ghost who has a show. He's a talk show host. So he's in space, and he does like interviews with people. So yeah, that's the show. It's kind of surrealistic, and yeah, don't know what much else to say.
Hello, I'm a pathetic loser, here to talk about old cartoons that nobody remembers unless you're getting old and forgetting what happiness feels like. What I want to talk about are what I would consider the 3 best Cartoon Network's cartoons: Johnny Bravo, Ed, Edd n Eddy, and Samurai Jack. Because I have decent taste, unlike most people on the internet. Let's start with Johnny Bravo. Why not? I mean, what can I really say about Johnny Bravo? It's practically just PG Duke Nukem. I mean, think about it. Both muscular, dumb-ass blondes who just care about the babes. Including the misogyny and everything! In all seriousness though, this show is just funny and has some charming characters. And although it does get a bit worse during some of the final seasons, but not every show is perfect. Unless your show's name is Villain Saga, of course. By the way, as a little bit of a side note, can we please get another Duke Nukem game? Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you, please, can we get another Duke Nukem game? Like, one that is actually good, and that has kept the farthest fuck away from the greasy man who saw Randy Pitchford. Can we fucking please? Next one is Ed, Edd n Eddy, aka the funniest cartoon that has ever goddamn existed. The show stars Ed spelled with 2 D's, also known as Double D, also known as what I gave your mom last night. Hey!
Kill yourself immediately!
And Eddie. The show itself is just extremely funny. Like, seriously, that fucking episode where Ed has a fucking rock in his shoe is still one of the funniest fucking episodes I have ever goddamn seen in my life. Just by thinking about it makes me fucking laugh. The motherfucker eats a whole fucking slide because he has a fucking rock in his shoe. The fuck did his parents feed this man? Also, the series ended with an absolutely amazing movie, which was not only funny, but also extremely heartwarming. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better end for such a great series. And last but not least, Samurai Jack. I mean, what do I need to say? It's Samurai motherfucking Jack. If you don't have this as your number one, or at least your top three, I will find you. I will find where you live, and I will put a fucking rock in your shoe. Pretty much almost everything about the show is just, masterpiece. The animation, the characters, the story, just almost everything about it. The only real bad thing I'd say about it is that it took fucking forever to actually complete. And also the ending was a bit rushed. But hey, not like I said earlier, no show is perfect. Saga. A few honorable mentions I will give to Ben 10, because the Omnitrix is still one of the coolest weapons or gizmos in all of anything ever. Star Wars, the Clone Wars, for making the prequels actually somewhat fucking good. Teen Titans, because of its great animation, great characters, great story, and, you know, getting my interest in goth girls. The only reason why it doesn't make my top 3 is because it doesn't have an ending. Yeah. And Foster's, because of Frankie. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Also, by the way, JK, you up and trolled the best show on Cartoon Network ever is The Annoying Orange. Yes, The Annoying Orange. That's clearly the best fucking show ever made. And it also includes my favorite non-controversial YouTuber, Tobaskis, who did absolutely nothing wrong. Totally. Don't look it up. You trust me. You do not want to look it up. Just trust me, okay? As you can clearly see, I have superior taste in all. Now, if I could excuse myself, I'm about to indulge myself in my favorite activity. Simping for virtual women.
Oh shit, it actually worked. Yeah, that's all, folks.
That's all!